Welcome to another edition of the eSpot with Camille. The eSpot is your location for the latest in entertainment, beauty, and design from the people who make it. Thanks for joining. And we're back, season 8, and it's so great already. Thank you so much for joining me. I cannot wait for you guys to meet my guest today because we're going to be talking about the largest organ that you have, your skin. And Anya, I am sure I'm saying her name wrong because she just told me, and already I'm like, let me do it the wrong way. But just in case, Anya, she'll correct me when she comes on, is a board certified nurse practitioner that specializes in aesthetics. Her philosophy is to deliver natural, refreshed results to help patients age gracefully. And with a combination of treatments, she's able to use collaboration and communication with with her patients to understand exactly how to get their goals. She loves educating them on what, how, and why of skincare with injectables to help them navigate through their treatment plan. She is always a student and understands the importance of continuing to learn new advancements in the specialty of medical aesthetics. I give you Anya. From Face in Charlotte. She's going to join me, and she's not only going to educate us on all things skin, she's going to educate me on how to pronounce her name correctly again, because this dyslexia, I cannot turn it off. It's as soon as I get the correct pronunciation, it's like my brain is stuck on stupid and wants to say the wrong one. So please, what is your correct name?
My name is Anya.
Anya.
It happens to me every single day, and it does not bother me. It's fine.
Thank you for being so understanding, because I mean, it's a beautiful name and I hate that I keep butchering it, but
it's okay.
I digress. So tell everyone, how did you even get started in the world of aesthetics? Because that is my favorite place.
It's a very interesting thing. I've kind of always been very into skin, and my friends would always be like, what do we need to do? How do we protect our skin? So skin was what I did right at home and just kind of did it. And then we got to a certain age, and then one of my friends was like, well, what about injectables? What do we do about Botox? And I knew nothing about Botox, at all. I've been a nurse practitioner forever. Side note, I have over 20 years in nursing. I've been a practitioner for 15 years. And when my friend asked me about Botox, I was like, well, let me go take a course and see what happens. So I took the course, and immediately I was like, I love this. Why have I not done this before? So I kept training and taking courses, and my husband was like, so are we going to put this to use? What's going to happen with this? And I was like, well, who pivots 20 years after they've been doing what they've been doing? He's like, people do it all the time. So that's what I did. I took a fellowship, learned the face, learned anatomy, and the only regret I have is that I didn't do it sooner. So now I get to teach patients, my friends, whoever wants to learn, especially people of color, what it is about aesthetics. Why is it a great thing? Why do we need to embrace it? And how you can utilize that towards your own anti-aging journey.
And that's one thing I get a lot of, because a lot of times people are like, I can't believe you tell everyone that all your treatments you get done. I'm like, why wouldn't I tell? First off, because the whole idea is you always notice bad work, but you don't know the good work. Like a lot of times they're like, oh, you don't look like you need it. Aha, that's because I get it. So I don't look like I need it. But at the same time, there's people out there that have really bad work that don't look natural, that do look like the cat lady and this, that, and the other. And so they have that visual of what Botox, filler, threads, all of that can lead to. So can you share a little bit about why it's so important on who you choose as a provider is just as important as what you choose to get done?
Absolutely. So if you're ever even thinking about, I don't really know about treatments and what I should do, how I should do this, at the end of the day, aesthetics is still medicine. So it's just like going to any other provider, your primary care provider, your OBGYN, your dermatologist. That's their job, is to assess you, do a consult, and then give you a treatment plan for what's actually trying to fix what's going on. So aesthetics is no different. It's I tell people it's where medicine and art meet, but you should trust your provider, and they should fully consult your face before they kind of dive into, oh, this is what I want to do with your face. This is what I don't think you should do. And a good provider will tell you no. Yes. So a lot of people will come in and be like, I want this. My friend got this. Well, that's great for your friend, but your friend has different skin, different collagen, different elastin. Their structure is literally completely different than yours, and your friend is going to need something differently than you will. So each treatment plan should be very, very, very particular to the person's face that you're treating. It shouldn't be a one size fits all at
No,
all.
I'm so glad you brought that up because sometimes I would, back in my day, I
Mhm.
would have clients bring in pictures of celebrities or whoever and be like, this is what I want to have done. How do we know what they've had done? Some of that's genetic. Some of that is the angle of the camera, the makeup artist. There's so many
Yeah,
different, or even like Photoshop, whatever. There's so many different elements that can change how somebody might look a certain way. But even you'll hear a lot of times in the news about like when somebody looks bad or when
yes,
it's overdone or even in a situation where they're like, oh, I kind of overdid it. Now I'm going backwards with it.
yes,
So, but to avoid that is like you said, is if you go to a provider that listens to you, that knows what goals you're looking for and doesn't just trying to show off their equipment, or maybe they have the rent is due. And so selling you an extra Juvederm wouldn't put them over the mark. You really never know. So it's so
exactly.
important to really trust your provider, have a provider you can trust, and also that will, like you said, tell you no when you're trying to do too much. Because I do think that's a big part of when you see these celebrities coming out saying they had to get certain things dissolved, this, that, and the others, because they do kind of go over. I mean, when you get it free or when you get it, so many different ways, it's hard to say no to it. So, I mean, most of the celebrities that came to my spa, they weren't charged for it. So, of course, why wouldn't they try everything at least
Right.
twice, right? So there's that. But I'm curious for you.
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier, even just the differences in like ethnicity as well as face shape and so on. What has been for you like the biggest eye opener you've learned from, obviously, you're a woman of color. So, what was been like, I guess a lot of the myths sometimes with Black people is we don't feel pain, our skin's thicker, our skin's tougher, we can handle more stuff, this, that, and the other. What have you learned that is not true? I mean, obviously, none of those are true, but what have you learned from being in the aesthetics world that's really just opened your eyes into the beauty world and what I guess as people of color consumers might need to know more about just in case they aren't able to get someone that looks like themselves as a provider?
I think the biggest thing is that black doesn't crack. And it's cool and it's a really catchy thing to say, and we do, our skin does age very differently. When we start showing signs of aging, we may get dry first, right? It may not be the line or the wrinkle that we show first. We may be discolored. That is us showing, that's our skin showing us that we are aging. So it is very different, but I think it's a little bit deeper than saying like black doesn't crack. Because in that sense we're saying maybe we don't need aesthetics. Maybe we don't need these, cutting edge medical things that are actually going to strengthen our skin. We do. And so we kind of have to be a little bit careful with saying black doesn't crack, because then we're also saying, or the narrative is being portrayed that we don't need these treatments. But I go a little deeper and say that they know there's certain people that may not be ready to treat us. We age differently. And there are people, certain providers, that may be a little bit nervous about treating someone of color. But, if they understand how the skin is aging and that we do actually want these treatments, then that's a whole nother demographic, a whole nother plan of marketing that needs to go into play, that aesthetics in general is now kind of just dip their toe into. But fully companies are trying to actually pull us in and let us know and understand like, hey, we understand we've kind of missed the mark, especially once aesthetics first started. Especially in the last 3 to 5 years, even their marketing has been completely different to start including people of color. Because if you don't see it in the marketing, then you do start to believe and start to think like, well, that's not for me, or we don't do treatments like that. And then it's very far from the truth.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I was when I started working at the Clinique counter like in the 90s. Like I've been a skin girl for a long time. And I was like the first Black girl to be hired by Clinique, I guess, as far as I know, in this area anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like people would just stop almost like, wait, we don't have to just go to fashion fair. Like there's colors for us at Clinique. And that's kind of like where it starts, where if you don't see it, how would you know you could achieve it?
Right.
That same aspect of you got to see it to believe it type of thing. So I do think it's really important to notice what companies do promote a diverse, or like their treatment plan, but also who they're treating. So you have a better understanding that maybe they can treat you as well. And
Yes.
it's always so good to see before and after pictures. And if you don't see anybody that looks like they're in your complexion range, ask, because it may be a matter of like, we don't always want to be used for our photos or to be used as promotion. And, so sometimes we're not the ones that want to be in the before and after pictures. Doesn't necessarily always mean that, we're not getting treated there. So I
Right.
want to get into the different treatments that you offer,
Okay.
because it is getting ready to be spring, and after spring comes summer, and it's like everybody's gonna be showing more skin. They're gonna want to go out and more natural. I know they say the mob aesthetic is what's in now, but clean skin is always in. Let's just be for real. Good skin is always in. So what are your big pushes for spring to summer, like making those changes from winter? What are your big treatment pushes right now?
So big treatment pushes for me, especially late fall, winter. This is like your peel season. And again, yes, we get peels. I love peels because they're kind of like the secret weapon. If you're not ready for injectables per se, but you're like, I want my skin to be glowy, I want it to be dewy, I want these lines kind of going fading away, you can do very light chemical peels. You don't have to look like a shedding snake where you have to cut the skin off. You can go very superficial and help those little fine lines that you're like, they weren't really there, but they're kind of peeking through. So now
Mhm.
is peel season. There are lasers we can do, but again, you have to be very, very, very particular about your provider that's going to do a laser, especially if you're of a darker skin tone. And then skincare, hands down, is a non-negotiable for someone that's in my chair, and sunscreen every single day. I don't know where we got that we don't need sunscreen, but we do. Everybody needs sunscreen. You have to protect your skin. Like you said in the beginning, this is the biggest organ of your body. You have to protect it. So sunscreen, hands down. Medical grade skincare is what I like to tell my patients to
Yes.
use. And then if they're ready to go a little bit deeper, of course, we can do some chemical peels. And then, of course, injectables once you start getting to a little bit of volume loss and you need a little bit more structural support.
Yeah, now I'm always surprised that people don't always know the differences in the different treatments, because I grew up in this world. My mom was a fashion fair makeup artist back in the 80s. I grew up watching her, going to get facials, all the things. That was just the world I lived in. And so I always knew what these treatments are. But even now, I've had friends say, "Oh, yeah, I didn't know you had Botox. I thought your lips were natural." Girl, that's not what Botox is. So, can you share a little bit even just about like what
Yes.
each treatment really does? Because I'm like, for me, it's always like, duh, but it's not. Like, it's surprising how many people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about getting Botox because I want to fix my under eye dark circles." I'm like, that's not Botox either, but that's okay. You're here to educate the masses. So tell us a little bit about what's the difference between filler and Botox, and then we'll talk about lasers to chemical pills.
Cool. I actually love it when a patient comes in and they're like, I just want a little bit of Botox right here to help these lines. And I'm like, okay. And so I always just ask them, like, what do you love about your face? What don't you like about your face? Because then we kind of, step it back a little bit. So the difference between Botox, well, Botox is a neuromodulator, and there are actually 5 different ones on the market. So some people will use Dysport, Juvo, Xeomin, Daxxify, and Botox. Those are
I have to
the
admit, I
5
do love Dysport because that's the one that lasts like 6 months, right? More than six
Daxxify.
months. A little bit
Studies
more.
are showing that it can last up to 6 months.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Mhm.
Okay,
So
very
they
cool.
all have the same active ingredient, and literally all we're doing is asking the muscle not to move. If I ask the muscle not to move, the skin on top doesn't fold with it, and we don't get those creases or those wrinkles anymore. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to change the shape of your face. It's not going to add any volume. I'm asking the muscle not to move. So most people, if you've never gotten treated before, will start in the upper third of their face. So a lot of people like to work on their 11s. A lot of people will like to work on their forehead, crow's feet. So we kind of start with the upper third of the face if you've never dipped your toe into the world of injectables.
Mhm. Okay, so now what is the difference between why somebody might choose laser for resurfacing or chemical pills?
Mhm. So laser or resurfacing, so a chemical peel is really, really superficial. There are different layers in the skin. Chemical peel is just going to go a little bit more superficial. Now you do have peels that can go very, very, very deep. Some that
I
actually
think of the V pill. Is that what you're thinking of?
feel. Some are deeper than that, but those would be performed like by a doctor. Sometimes you have to do them in the OR. That's how deep you can go with that.
Mm.
Again, not for skin tones that are dark like mine, but more superficial ones, absolutely. And you can do a very superficial peel. I mean, I'd say every 6 to 8 weeks if it's very superficial. Deeper ones, you don't want to do that often. Lasers, though, you want to, with the laser, you can cause intentional injury on purpose so that you build much more structural support deeper down. So, you think about lasers, you want to do, there's different things you can do with lasers. You can treat dark spots, you can treat red spots, rosacea, capillaries, broken capillaries. You can literally intentionally create injury to build collagen support and to tighten you a little bit more. So very different than chemical peels. They go much deeper, use a different sort of light source depending on what you want to do with light and heat.
Okay.
And that's
Now,
one of your questions. I didn't tell you the difference between Botox and filler.
right. Yeah. Let's do that one too.
So filler, we use filler. You can either use hyaluronic acids. There are PLLAs. There are calcium hydroxide. That all kind of, depending on what we use to inject, we can replace volume loss that we've had or give a more structural support. So filler, your body will interpret that sort of like an implant. So I'm using filler to replace volume that you've either lost or give you volume that you don't have. And most of the time, if we're giving you volume that you don't have, we're thinking about the lips. But replacing volume that you've lost, typically in the temples, mid-face, that includes under eye, in front of your ear, jaw support, chin support, all of that.
But now, since you're speaking of all that chin support, brow support, that support, somebody also told me you do a little thing called threads.
I do.
So you don't have to just rely, because that's the other thing with Botox. You can also
Mhm.
use it as a brow lift, allegedly. Mine already are lifted to the gods, so there's
Yeah,
that.
you
But
look
for but for those of us who wouldn't mind going even higher, there's threads. So can you talk a little bit about threading?
Yes.
Threads.
Threads. There are many different types of threads. You have smooth threads. You have threads that are wrapped around the. I don't want to scare anybody, but threads that are wrapped around the needle to give a little bit more volume support. And then you have barb threads that most people, when they think about threads, they're thinking about barb threads. And so we place barb threads into the skin, into a deeper layer of the skin, and it actually goes down. And as it goes down, that thread acts like Velcro. It kind of has little bitty teeth on it. And when you put the thread in, it grabs onto the skin and it literally acts like Velcro and holds onto everything. And as I pull up on that thread, either here or here, it gives a natural little lift. Now, a lot of people will come in and say, I want a thread lift. This is what I want to do. I want it to be like this. And I'm like, cool, threads can achieve some of that. Threads are probably the area where I tell most people no, because you have to have a tiny little bit amount of laxity. You can't have a ton of laxity, meaning there's not, the lower part of your face is a little jowly here. But if you have a lot of skin hanging, threads are not for you.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then we've moved into past the expectation of what the actual thread can deliver. But essentially, threads act like little Velcro underneath the skin. We pull them up, it pulls the skin with it. The result of a thread lift can last about a year to 18 months, depending on how fast you're already breaking down your own collagen. But yeah, so you will repeat that treatment. A lot of people don't realize that you do have to repeat that treatment if you want to keep that lifted look.
I love all these non-invasive ways, because that's the thing for me is like, not only when I work in the industry that I work in, I don't know when I'll be working from day to day. So I don't want to risk, oh, I can't go to work today because I decided to get something more invasive done or something. And that's what I love about all the treatments you offer. And also the spa that I go to here locally is that it's just that, like, everything can be done pretty quickly within your office, lunchtime, maybe a little bit longer, but also the results are pretty astounding. Like, you can have great results, especially if you understand what your expectations are. And like, you're not coming in expecting to look like Beyonce when you leave.
Right.
I mean, even Beyonce doesn't look like Beyonce. You know what I mean? So like, having those elements of like so many different things in your toolbox now to use, I have to ask, since you are been in this industry for 20 something years, how do you maintain your youthful look? What do you use?
I get my Botox every 3 to 4 months. I get my Sculptra yearly, get my filler
Wait,
yearly.
Sculptra, people might not know by, speaking of that, so filler, a lot of times they're known as Juvederm, Sculptra, there's different kinds. So Sculptra is one of the fillers that you have done. Where do you have that done?
Temples. You can do Sculptra over your entire face. I mean, and I'm not getting paid to say this, but it's my favorite thing to inject. because like you mentioned before, people are very nervous and very scared of looking overdone. But Sculptra does not do that to you, because your Sculptra is injected and it allows you to build your own collagen to support your own volume and your own literal structure support. So versus me telling your body how much I'm going to inject to give that look that I want for you, your body's going to make your own collagen to replenish your volume that you've lost. So I don't have to decide that. Your body's going to decide that for you. And so you get a little bit of skin integrity improvement with it as well. I can use it pretty much everywhere. You don't use Sculptra in the lips though. But here people are like, oh, this nasolabial fold bothers me. This little jowling bothers me. I can put a little bit of Sculptra there, help that support. You can use it in your neck. We can do body with Sculptra. We could have a whole nother conversation about
like a whole mommy makeover just with Sculptra. I love it. I love it. So, okay. So you do Botox, you do Sculptra. Is there anything else?
Yeah. I've had filler in my cheeks, under my eyes, a little bit in my chin. Yeah.
Okay. So how often do you get chemical pills? Because I know you mentioned it earlier that you get that done as well.
Yeah. I like to do my pills about every 8 weeks.
Okay. Okay. So you're getting,
summer, so.
this is what the nurse is doing. Oops, over here. What the nurse is doing. So we're listening to her and figuring out what works best for our own skin. So when you go to your nurse practitioner, whether you're in Charlotte or if you're somewhere else, whoever's local to you, what are some of the main questions you suggest people ask before getting treatments done, just to make sure they're with the right provider?
I like to have people ask, how long have you been doing this? Who supports you? Where did you get your training from? Aesthetics is very interesting because we don't have a board certification. So there are courses and trainings that people take, but as long as you understand that your provider should it shouldn't just be a one and done of a course. It's just like any other thing. We have to continue our continuing education in this specialty. So it's a little bit of gray in that area, but ask for pictures. Ask, if you say, my friend got this and what do you think? You want them to assess your face for what you want and what your face is, what's to your proportions. I like to tell people not to expect to just get one area injected. Our goal is to keep your entire face balanced. And so, a lot of buzzwords now is like facial balancing, and really, people are a little bit nervous and scared because they have to understand that, if I replace one area, if I replace the volume that you lost in that one area, then I have to address everything else, because now the other areas are going to look even more volume depleted. So don't get nervous when you hear multiple syringes or you're going to need multiple vials of something. We're just trying to give you the look that you're asking for to be refreshed again. But to get you to that, especially if you've never been injected before, it's going to take a little bit of time, and not to rush the process. It shouldn't all be done in an hour. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Now, you mentioned how much time it actually takes to get the procedure, but how much time should people expect to start seeing results? Because that was the one thing that I was kind of surprised when I first started doing Botox, is that it does take 2 weeks for it to take effect, give or take. And so you're like, every day you're squinting around looking to see, okay, is it done? Is it started yet? Or, or my husband stopped asking, what are you looking at? What are you staring? That's when I know. I'm like, oh, it's kicked in. when I'm back to poker facing it and no longer RBFing. So tell me a little bit about with the other, because I've only had like PRF. So I've had my plasma rich fibrin re-put in the nasolabial folds. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't, because I wasn't like, when I went in, I was like, oh, I just want to look younger, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really notice that this was like deeper. But then after she did it, I was like, oh, but it takes like forever for it to wear off, because I'm like, I don't know if I need it yet. But it's not as obvious like with the wrinkles where you can obviously tell. So share a little bit about not only when you can expect results, but when do you know when to come back?
So another main difference between your neuromodulators, your Botox, your Dysport, all of those, and filler, or even PRF, is that with Botox or any of your neuromodulators, she's right, you don't see it the day you get injected. You have to, it's a drug, so your body has to literally take it in and allow the drug to do what it's going to do. So you'll start seeing, some people start seeing their Botox set in day 3, day 4. Typically with Botox, you're going to see it set in at about 5 to 7, but full effect is sometimes 2 weeks, even 3 weeks after that. With some of the other neuromodulators, they can set in quicker, but still same effect. Full effect is at 10 to 14 days after that, but then it slowly starts to wear off. So remember, it's a drug, so you're going to metabolize it out. If it does last 6 months, you either have a slow metabolism or we put a lot more units in. So how many units you get affects how long your dose is going to last. So I tell people to expect their Botox or neuromodulator treatments about once a quarter to stay on top of, if you came in with the goal of like, oh, these pesky 11s bother me, the last thing you want to do is allow that muscle to fully wake up. So you want to make sure you're getting your treatments at least quarterly for those, for your wrinkle
Okay.
relaxers. Now,
Okay.
for your filler, you can actually see those results the day of, like as soon as it's done being injected, you can see what it looks like then. But I particularly like your filler about 3 or 4 weeks after you've been injected, because at that point your body's like married it in, it's kind of melted in, it's integrated into your tissue, and it to me looks way better then than it does initially after. Once you get injected that day, your body's in a little bit of like, who are you and why are you in here crowding my space?
Yeah.
It kind of has to melt in and integrate a little bit. And so I particularly like filler about 3 weeks out. But you're right, PRF you can see pretty much immediately as well. I like to dabble and say, about 3 to 4 treatments of PRF to really get your body to kind of like do what it's going to do. But yeah, you can see
Mhm.
them immediately.
All right. Well, now I want to make sure everyone knows how they can find you, where they can book with you, all the fun things of that nature. So share a little bit about that, and then we're going to go on this beautiful day and enjoy the rest of the E spot.
Yes. All right. So you can follow me on Instagram. I am at sign ANAYA_NP. And there in my bio, you'll find my link to book with me. You'll see everything that I'm doing. I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina, towards Pineville, towards Matthews, and towards Valentine. So I'm in the southern part of Charlotte, but I'm here.
Fantastic. So, again, thank you so much for being my guest today. I absolutely loved being able to talk shop. Anytime I get the chance to talk about beauty, and like even now, it means so much to me just because I used to work at a spa and there was only my clients I got to talk to. And now with the podcast, I have the opportunity to share with so many different people in so many different areas. So it was really grateful to find someone in Charlotte because I get asked all the time who to go to in Charlotte, who to go to. And now we know who to go to in Charlotte. so thank you so much for sliding into my DMs and letting me know that you had moved, because that was the other part. Like, it's funny, I got text messages once I found you, and then they were like, we can't find her anymore, she's not at the place you used to work at anymore in plastic surgery. And so I was like, do you not follow her Instagram? She like did a whole thing showcasing that she started and opened up her own business. So even support a small business, newly
Yes.
open. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
all of that. So again, thank you so much for being my guest. Congratulations on your new place.
Thank you.
It's the long AFAC. Just
Yeah, come face as in serving and giving.
all day long, all day long.
Okay. And thank you
Well,
for
thank
not
you so much for coming.
gatekeeping, because you have given so many other women permission to talk about the things that we've been getting done. We are very nervous to say like we've done this or we've done that. So thank you. Please keep shining the light.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure because that's why I got into aesthetics, was to help other women, because I felt like makeup did such a big job for me. Like I went from, oh, I lost her for a minute there, but I'll just keep talking. I went from feeling like the ugly duckling into a beautiful swan for like the joys of having a makeup artist that did my makeup one day on set. And it was like, it changed my whole life. Like I just had more self-confidence, just entered the room differently. And I felt the same way when I was working as an esthetician. So many times with my clients, especially my acne clients, when their skin was clear, they had so much more confidence. Or with my aging clients, when they just felt like they could get, like they were giving up, to see them feel like, I got this youthfulness again. It was amazing. So I absolutely love being able to do this. I enjoy anything I can do to help us other women out there. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please don't feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And thanks for tuning in to the eSpot with Camille. Make sure you keep tuning in, because there will be more of these great episodes coming everywhere that you listen to podcasts, and of course on YouTube. Have a wonderful week. And thanks again. Stop recording.